All right, well, let's dive in. Okay, everybody. Well, it's nice to see everyone. Once again, this is our inaugural War on Dull Buildings Summit, or WODBS for short. If you've never met me before, I'm John Phillips. I'm CEO of Philcom Global, an emerging industries PR firm that has the pleasure of working with multiple companies in the Milburn, Lilly, Sydney, Nova Scotia ecosystem. So yeah, War on Dull Buildings. It's a co-production effort by AGL, Glazing Innovation Leaders and Makers of Solera and SoleraWall, and of course the Better Buildings for Humans podcast and community produced by AGL, which explores the vital connection between the built environment and the human experience. What do we mean when we talk about dull buildings? Dull is everything from a physical manifestation to a state of mind that is tired, lackluster, outmoded, and simply not cutting it for occupants, owners, architects, and all stakeholders of the built environment. It's a dark metal box on the side of the highway, grossly underserving its occupants who deserve daylight and an environment that fosters wellness, productivity, and inspiration. It's failing to realize that in 2024, sustainable buildings actually impact the bottom line for companies when it comes to revenue. And so many more topics that we're going to be exploring over our 4 sessions today and tomorrow. This, of course, is our second session. A quick reminder to our panelists that today we only have an hour, so please do be mindful of time and keep your answers as concise as possible, though thorough. Don't feel like you have to rush. But we do want to allow for maximum participation from the panel. So now I'm really proud to introduce Joe Menchesky, our esteemed host of Better Buildings for Humans podcast and also Senior Corporate Sales Manager at Advanced Glazings, and Terry McGilvery, Product Manager for SoleraWall and Senior Architectural Product Consultant at AGL. Both of these gentlemen will be leading today's session, which of course is Green Evolution, Transforming the Metal Building Landscape. So with that, excited to get into it. Take it away, Joe and Terry.
Thank you very much. I'll tell you how I would like to start. I would like to start by calling on Tony Bucco, who is the Executive Director of the MBMA, the Metal Building Manufacturers Association. And what better way to start than by actually defining a metal building? So Tony, let's pretend you're at a dinner party and somebody walks up to you and says, "What do you do for a living?" You tell them you're the Executive Director of the MBMA, and they say, What's a metal building? And then take it away, Tony.
Thanks, Joe. I wasn't expecting this early, but I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, the short answer is a metal building is a low-rise, non-residential building that is made of steel. It is a custom engineered. Some people call it a pre-engineered metal building, PEMB. Down this side of the northern border to us, I'm in Cleveland. Up your way, I think you call them sheet steel buildings, but that is what a metal building is.
Okay, well, fantastic. Now, I'm gonna throw one more little comment in before I just get the conversation going. I'm going to say about 15 years ago, I can't remember if it was Steve Lilly or Doug Milburns handed me a book called The Innovator's Dilemma by a guy named Clayton Christensen. And one of the most important things that he talked about was a lot of, the concept of disruption. The original concept of disruption was about new technologies that had to start in very low sort of cost, low performance industries. And they found the niche in that sort of low cost, low performance world. And then as they started to gain revenues, the performance levels went up, the costs went up, the places that they went to in the marketplace, basically they swim upstream. To me, the metal building industry is just an absolutely perfect example of an industry that started, with barns, agricultural facilities, those like really sort of entry-level applications. And now you see the metal building industry expanding to retail, to office space, normally a stronghold of traditional building methodologies. So swimming upstream into these higher end applications, also sort of comes with the obligation of creating better spaces, the non-dull buildings, the healthier buildings, the buildings that people want to be in. And with that comment, I'll open it to anybody who wants to jump in. Chesney, Steve, anybody who'd like to comment on that sort of the move upstream.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Right.
Thanks, Joe. So I actually just to give you an example, so I work for a company that is called NORBEC. We are a IMP, so an insulated metal panel manufacturer. For those who don't know NORBEC, we're located in Canada, so we have two locations, one close to Montreal, the other one close to London, Ontario, that is about to open in the upcoming weeks. And actually, the new facility that we're building in Ontario is it's a pre-inch building. It's a pre-engineered building, so it's a 1,000-foot long facility by 100-foot long wide. So it's a pretty big building. It's going to host the equipment that we need to manufacture more IMPs. And I had the same, like in the past, I had the same feeling that those metal buildings were kind of more utilitarian than architectural. And when you dive into this environment, you figure out that there's so much that you can do with the pre-inch building. So it's a really interesting business to discover and way of building new constructions.
Yeah, and I would completely agree, Joe. And I think you hit the nail on the head. At Wintech, we've got 6 different product divisions, one of which is light commercial, which is the metal building industry for us. How we kind of categorize it, we produce windows for that metal building market. And I would say of all the different divisions that we have, the metal building side seems to be the one where the evolutionary, if you were to graph it out, it's not linear. It seems to be more parabolic. I mean, it's a to your point, what used to hold a tractor back in the day, now you can drive by and you'll look at industrial manufacturing facilities to churches, some office spaces. You wouldn't even know that they're pre-engineered metal building just by looking at them, because the skins on them have changed so much over the last few years that you might would have thought that that's just typical wood frame or site built construction, whatever the case may be. But man, the metal building industry has changed a lot over the last, I don't know. Tony would be much more equipped probably to help me out with what the time frame actually is. But in the last several years, it seems like you go driving down the road, you can see a lot of metal building. If you know exactly what you're looking for, the average person wouldn't have a clue that that's exactly what it was made from.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. Tony, when you're with your people in the industry, is it a conscious move to swim upstream, or is it just a very natural thing that occurs in these sorts of industries? Is it things that you guys talk about?
Do we talk about it for sure? It's interesting you say, is it natural? It's natural in terms of the evolution of any industry. Where we began back in more industrial, quite honestly, if you go back to the very beginning, it goes back to U.S. military and Quonset huts. That's really the origins of metal buildings. And the evolution over the years, basically since those days in the 1930s, it's been finding new applications for them to expand the market. And what our members have found is the way you go about that is you need to make the buildings more flexible. And you do that by doing some of the things Chesney talked about and Alex talked about, where it's a lot of it has to do with how you clad the building, right? Alex, you guys make insulated metal panels. That's been a big evolutionary step for metal buildings, is making sure that's a seamless marriage between a metal building skeleton and an IMP skin, which gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of how you can use that building and what that building can look like, and what's the opposite of dull, how exciting that building can be, right? So it's a natural evolution, Joe. It's interesting. Next week we will be in Washington, D.C. at the National Association of Architects, the AIA show. It's their big annual show here in the States, and NBMA will be there. And our whole booth display is a big light up 20-foot long display that's nothing but photos of buildings with the headline, "Can you spot the metal building?" And it's a trick question. If you happen to be there, they're all metal buildings. So there you go. I just gave you a freebie.
Well done, Chesney. That was a nice lead in. Okay, so what's changed? Oh, sorry, Steve wants to speak. Go ahead, buddy.
You mentioned my name. Am I allowed to talk? I'm not on the panel here. Am I allowed?
I wasn't going to say anything.
Absolutely.
Anyway, look, really quick. I love the talk, and I think we've got some really good relevance in terms of the evolution. So, one of our buildings, very 70-ish building, you refer to the sheet metal. It was an old Air Liquide building is what it was, 20,000 square feet. So we moved our manufacturing into there. And if you look inside our building, it looks very traditional with the equipment in terms, it looks like a very traditional manufacturing, sheet metal fab or what have you. But when we had to expand that building, we went from the old 70s piece and we added another 20,000 square feet of insulated metal panels with SoleraWall, just this beautiful daylighted area. And now half of the building nobody wants to be in the other half of the building, people just love the experience of being inside. And we took that one step further to, oh, look at that. Yeah, you can see in the background, you see the beautiful daylighted area, whereas this was actually when we were first moving into that area. And then the other pieces for the evolution is about office space. So our building for 45 drives, again, all insulated metal panels with SoleraWall integrated into it, but makes just this incredibly beautiful, bright, pleasant space inside. And it's a 100% office area. So, and it is a real, truly, upper end office area, and just incredible in terms of that evolution. So I know Melissa might have some other pictures to show. I'm not on the panel, so I'll shut up now and I won't speak again.
I want you to speak again. Tell us about how people feel when they're in the bright side of the building versus the dark side of the building.
Well, first of all, I can speak from personal experience. So, I'm in there where we have guests in sometimes doing tours and what have you. And, we'll often start at the beginning of the production line, which is where we have our two lasers, which is in the very darkest part of the building. And certainly as you walk through the energy and you just feel it yourself as you move into that daylighted area, it just feels refreshing to be there. I mean, it's just spectacular, the difference. And that's it. You see, there's no lights on in that building right now, and that is just a beautifully daylighted spot. And in contrast to where we are in the back end of the building. So just an incredible feel.
What do you think about that, Chesney? Those images you're seeing there?
Yeah, that's actually phenomenal. I mean, the very first one you had where it shows, you're standing in the dark area taking a picture towards that lighter area. That is phenomenal. And and then followed by that one there. I mean, it's phenomenal.
And you know what, guys,
those are not doctored pictures either. That is real.
Steve, that's what I was going to say. I took those pictures with my iPhone. Just have a look at that, and it's very dramatic.
Yeah,
and actually, when you're in it,
do we have 45 drives? A couple of shots of the office space, because it's a beautiful office area too. Well, that's the one corner of it there as well. Yeah, but the open end where our tech support work for 45 drives, just incredibly, just a beautiful, soft, brilliant spot to work.
I apologize. I wasn't prepared for your session yet because you're not on until tomorrow. But I love how naturally this conversation is flowing. This is amazing.
I guess I'll be prepared for tomorrow now.
Harry, how much do people know about daylight in this industry? You and I have been sort of experimenting. You spent more time in it than I have. How much do you have to explain natural light and daylight to people in this world versus how much do they actually know already?
Well, great question. We're in the daylight world. We think about daylight analysis. We look at plans. Where's east, where's north, where's south. We're always thinking daylight. And then we go to the metal building world, thinking like we're gonna convert them. But most people get it. Most people understand daylight is good, lighting's good. I'm sitting here. There's a window here. It's important. I want to look if it's raining or snowy or windy or whatnot. It's important. Everyone gets that. but they don't know how to get it, don't know how to convert that, what they want that's important, into their buildings. Now, the beauty is, and we just talked with Chesney and Alex here, those are two partnerships that Advanced Glazings has developed because they want to build buildings that bring daylight in, and we want to build buildings that bring daylight in. And it's totally different approaches, different products, but the thing is the same. They want to bring daylight in. So, a quick way to answer your question: people understand it, they want it, they don't know how to get it yet, because we're also dealing with daylight versus light coming in through vision glass. That's getting a little more specific on that. And that's what Chesney and Wintech have been dealing with. Vision glass versus light diffusing glass, and that actually daylights pushes light in and all that stuff too, right? That is the subtle difference on that. Alex gets that. He deals with translucence. Reason we're partnered with NORBEC. They need a solution. They want to own the wall. They want to be responsible for insulating metal panels, which is green, energy efficient, and highly insulated translucent stuff that isn't necessarily plastic. But we'll talk about that in another topic. But it's important for the metal building world. And Tony, this is your world. I'd love your feedback on that.
Totally agree, Terry. The interesting thing there is, quick story here. So 2 weeks ago, I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, shooting a video out there. We have a video series called Travels with Tony, where I go visit metal buildings that I find interesting. And we were visiting 2 buildings out there. And one of them was a facility called the Hardesty Center for Dance Education. It's the home of the Tulsa Ballet. So while I'm there doing the video, I actually did an interview with the architect on the project. And when I asked him the question, which I ask any of the designers on any of our buildings on these videos, I say, why did you choose a metal building? So his answer was, and some people in my industry don't like to hear this, but this is the honest answer, is because it was cheap. It was the least expensive option for enclosing the most amount of area on a budget. If you can imagine, the Tulsa Ballet is it's a nonprofit. They have to be tight with their money. Pretty much any project like this that they do, they are doing using donated funds. And Melissa, can I share my screen to show the picture of the building?
Yep, just give me 1 second here. You go for it, Tony.
See it right there. Thank you. All right. So this is an image of the building there, the finished building.
Very
so
cool.
What you can, it's a very cool building, and what you can see is they used a metal building skeleton. They actually used a lot of cladding of metal building steel wall panel, but within those constraints, they did some very interesting things to make the building more functional because this is their Center for Dance Education. So everything you see, most of that space in there is studio space for mainly kids, right? Talking about daylighting, you can see how they incorporated those high windows across the entire building so that all of the studios are just basked in daylights throughout the day. And they're beautiful. They're absolutely gorgeous studio spaces. I don't have a photo here of the inside, but you can imagine. And they're these very well-appointed studios. So rather than spending the money on the building shell, they spent the money on the interior spaces, which is really the focus of the building. The other interesting side note on this building, you notice it's a very unusual shape. It kind of forms a W, and the shape is actually based on a particular ballet position called a pas de deux, if you know ballet at all, but it's basically where 2 dancers come together and form kind of a W shape with their legs extended beyond them. So you can kind of see that within the shape of the building there. So, and they were able to do that all within standard metal building framing because it's all custom engineered, and custom fabricated for that project.
It's a gorgeous building. And Tony, I must say, I'm very impressed with your knowledge of ballet. Congratulations. So Terry McGilvery, what would you have done different with this beautiful building?
Well, we're in the daylighting business. So like, where's east? Is there going to be glare issues there? I hope not. But once again, the glass is up high. But I do look at where's the orientation of that building. are the window coverings there? Do you need window coverings there? That's just our world of managing, trying to harvest light into the space, managing glare in there. It's a beautiful building. If you can control the amount of light coming into that space, holy smoke, that'll be beautiful inside. And it will glow just like it's doing right now, Tony. It'll glow at the nighttime as well.
And Terry, it's interesting you should point those things out because the building's been around. They opened in 2018. Talking to the folks who live and work there, control of the light is probably one of their biggest issues. So, so definitely, I need to put you in touch with those folks.
Yeah, we could help. We could help.
Tony, that's a brilliant example. That you made the point beautifully. That the whole idea of the industry swimming upstream. I can't imagine a better example. So thank you for that. Let's see. Let's talk about light again. Let's stay on that subject for a little bit. Chesney, you're very much on the front line of providing light and views for the industry. How often do you have people asking you, are there ways to bring natural light into these buildings?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things to me about the metal building industry, especially when it comes to bringing light in or light diffusion or, accessing exterior light, it's one of the, I don't know if I'll call it industries or building types, if you will, that are almost designed in some cases specifically to bring in light. So I'm talking, when metal buildings are used for manufacturing, for warehousing, for, in any of the high sidewalls where they'll actually, you'll see at the top of them, almost just like that school that was just shown there. You've got that clear story that will run 15, 20, 30 feet in the air, where the intent of that clear story in general, it's directional. It's to bring light in. It's not necessarily to see out, right? To see, who's driving up. You can't see outside. You see trees and the sky, but it's to let that light in. In previous years, it's been done with translucent, panels of some kind. There's a topic on the agenda to discuss some of those things, but in general, this industry, especially in those applications that use that clear story, these buildings are almost designed specifically for the entrance of exterior light so that we, especially in like farming, agricultural applications, maybe some warehousing and manufacturing where you don't have to turn those lights on, certainly so that you don't have to turn them on and leave them on all day long. It lets that light in so people can come and go. Obviously, in those previous pictures that were shown at the very beginning, without a single light on, there are no safety issues. There are no danger, shading issues. That it is just flooding that building with that light, those light diffusing, in the aerogel and all that stuff that is making that light. The metal building world is kind of built for that by already having in its design the high walls and clear story. So I think the key now, we were talking about innovation a while ago. You kind of started off with it, Joe, actually talking about innovation and how, whether it's planned or if it's an evolution type of thing. I look back 10, 15 years ago, the innovation on the window side of the world for metal buildings used to be the fins that are on the windows. How are they installed? How do they work with the panels, the different thicknesses of panels and offset fins and self-flashing? So the fin and how the window is installed was the innovation. And I think now the evolution is, okay, that's all fine and dandy. Now it's the innovation of energy efficiency, light diffusion, occupant comfort and those things. I think it's going to be that next level of innovation.
Oh, absolutely. Terry, you've got a quote about, fins and those kinds of things. What's the term you always use, or the little phrase you always use? It's to do with blocking versus harvesting, or?
Oh, just you made a general comment on they block the light. If the fins are the fixed fins, we deal with architects a lot of time, and then
Must be cold where Terry's sitting.
this wall is south. It works in the morning, doesn't work from 11 o'clock till 1 o'clock. It's You got the light coming in straight in like that. And then after that, it starts to work again. So fixed louvers, it works a little bit, but it also blocks the sun. It blocks it out. You're still letting, if there's 100,000 lux or 10,000 foot candles coming in, it blocks half it. The other half is still coming in, uncontrolled daylight coming into that space. I did have Chesney, just if you don't mind, go back to, this is a question I was going to ask you, and it depends on the building, depends on the metal building, but you answered my question already. A lot of times windows or glazing in metal buildings are designed to let light in versus connect people within the building to connect outside. It depends on their application. I mean, if there's churches, if it's office, that's a different thing, but it's an important thing. Like, why are the windows up there? I let the light in, but then it's too bright. Then I've seen pictures of offices. I think, Steve, in your office, I think I remember seeing it one time, those office umbrellas, because there's uncontrolled daylight coming into the space and it's just blind way up there. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because that's not doing what it's supposed to do, to control natural light coming into the space in these buildings.
Right.
Sorry, that's a little rant. Yeah.
Oh no, it's exactly where I wanted you to go with that. If you look at traditional methods of bringing light in, it's all about avoiding direct sunlight. Traditional methods, because we all know you get the bright spots on the floor, the hot spots, and you end up with the windows covered with blinds, and then you've got no daylighting, no views or anything, and it's all because it's about trying to control the light. But when you block the direct sunlight, you don't have as much light available to illuminate the interior space. So it's a real trade-off, which is why we got into the world of light diffusion. And I want to, Alex has been too quiet over there, so we've got to drag him in. For anybody who doesn't know, Advanced Glazings and NORBEC have a partnership now where we're working together to make better building envelopes, better walls that combine, the IMPs and Solera. Alex, the combination of IMP and light diffusing glazings, highly insulated light diffusing glazings, what advantage does that have to the metal building industry from your perspective?
Yeah, well, for those who don't know the IMP that much, it's the better way I could explain that it's a one component panel that can complete most of the functions that you're looking at when you do a building envelope system. Okay, so you have your insulation, and it's the best in class compared to other solutions available. Then you have the interface, you have the exterior face, which is also the aesthetic of the building, or we can talk about other options as well, but you can play with the colors on the outside. Then you have your vapor barrier, your rain screen. So it combines all the different components within one 4 feet wide panel. This panel can attach directly to the structure, so you don't have to add multiple layers of steel components to hold the panel in place. And basically, because it's a really good installation that could meet the building code requirement like easily with a pretty thin construction, like 3-4 inch, depending on where you're at in North America, then it just makes sense to combine this product with other high insulated value and high easy to install components. So to me, it's like, if we can have multiple systems that work with the same mindset, where you work on a bare structure, where you bring a lot of added value to the building in terms of insulation, and at the same time in terms of daylighting, then I think you have a really good building that will withstand for the future. And like, basically you're building for the long term. Sorry about that.
Well, let's run with that theme, building for the long term. The components that we put on the building envelope are certainly going to have a very strong, determining factor on how long the building lasts, and especially how long the building envelope lasts. How much are we seeing, are we still seeing like single-use plastics as an element on a building envelope. And I'll open that to anybody, Alex, Chesney, Tony, Terry. How much are we still seeing polycarbonates in clear story? How much are we still seeing FRP in you know, as a window substitute? Is that still happening, single-use plastics?
We see that there are options for translucent panel or daylighting systems that will use those polycarbonate or fiber products. And the one thing that to me it's kind of strange, and I'm kind of an outsider into the daylighting and translucent panels, so I have this kind of outsider point of view on that thing. Is I'm being asked on a daily basis to provide long-term warranty. So 40 years on finishes for this and that. So, and on the other end, like it's known that polycarbonate and those kind of system will crack over time, and the period of time it takes to get to that that point where you might think you need to change those materials, it's 10-15 years. This is what I heard a lot from people having those systems and or having to replace products with products on their buildings. So to me, it's kind of counterintuitive when you have when the building envelope system needs to get to a 40-year lifespan or more, and then you build your building with product that you know will fail mid-life, you know.
Chesney, how would you comment on that?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. My comment on it I would probably have to defer slightly to Tony and others, mainly for this reason. So when it comes to our systems, we don't see a lot of single-use translucent plastic type of products that we actually glaze within our framing systems. So I don't see it come through Wintech. We don't get our hands on it and touch it, you know, much. We mainly play in the glass world. That said, I live in Southwest Missouri. I drive by a lot of metal buildings, and I see a lot of these, you know, polycarbonate type panels all over the place. So my gut feeling is it's still going on. It's still being utilized to let light into the building, you know. So that's my gut feeling, but I'm not an expert on it. I'm not sure how the industry is moving there, just because we're kind of a glass aluminum or glass and vinyl type manufacturer.
Well, there's a place for plastics, clearly. I mean, the fact that you're still seeing it means there's a place. Terry, do you have any comments on, you know, let's say an application where it still makes sense to use a single-use plastic?
Yeah. Place where there's no people. Really. And then once again, it's our day. I'm putting my daylighting hat on, but to experience what Steve Lilly's experienced with his employees in a place, and to know that that's going to start to deteriorate. I'll be polite. I'll be Canadian. I'll be polite. It's certainly going to deteriorate. It's going to change color. I'm not going to mention nicotine stained teeth. I'm not going to mention that because that's too derogatory. But it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. I'm going to take another step back. Talk about Alex. You mentioned about the life cycle of a building, 40 years for your warranty. I did some quick math. Amazing, Google can do stuff. I said construction costs over the past 20 years going forward, to figure out what construction costs are and inflation and all that stuff too. In short, construction material on average doubles every 20 years. Every 20 years. So we did about, Melissa and I worked on that, did a quick little graph. If you spend $100,000 on plastic something, FRP or polycarbonates, in 20 years time, maybe you have to replace it. So guess what? You're going to spend $200,000 on it. In another 20 years, you're going to have to do it again. It's double again. You can spend $400,000. So you're going to spend $700,000 on that product over 40 years. $700,000 over 40 years. And that, it doesn't make sense. To talk about sustainability, you have a beautiful building that's going to last 50. Well, yeah, there it is here. There's my math. I mean, my math was correct too. Good. But
you guys are really keeping me on my toes today with these graphs and photo sharing and videos.
You're the B-roller. But, you know, talk about sustainability and the body carbon stuff. That's the other stuff too. But just the pure math on that stuff. And I know there's other tangible, well, it's capital costs, and we have so much to, we got to get the building in, Tony, to your point, why was a metal building? Because it's cheap. And so I'll go with plastic because it's cheap. And I won't be around 20 years time, so someone else could deal with that later to replace it. Grow up, guys. Anyway, that it doesn't make sense to me on the math on that. So we kind of talk about that. Glass lasts the life of the building, just like the rest of the building should, and just like the owners should. They're making a huge investment on this building. Why cheap out? And it's really cheap because it's a cheap alternative. Anyway, that's my little rant on plastics.
Tony, I noticed you unmuted there for a moment. That means you probably wanted to say something. I'm going to give you a chance to jump in.
I was ready to jump in if you needed me to, but just to build off what Terry was just saying, one of the big advantages we promote with regard to metal buildings, and when we say metal, we're talking steel, not just any metal, is that when we talk about the greening of buildings, is the addition of solar panels, right? A metal building is a great platform for mounting solar panels. You see other building types, when they go to add solar to that project, oftentimes they'll put up a racking system out in the parking lot and call it a shade system for the cars and put the solar panels there. With a metal building, particularly with a standing seam roof, you can put that right on top of the roof. There are racking systems available where you don't have to have roof penetrations at all, so you don't mess with the water barrier on the roof. But when we talk about that, we also like to point out that, yeah, you can put solar panels on any roof, but the most common alternative to a steel roof is going to be a build-up roof, which has a lifespan of about 20 to 25 years before you're going to have to service that thing. Well, Terry, if you Google lifespan of solar panels, you'll see that today's photovoltaics will last 30 to 40 years. So the point being, doesn't it make sense to put the solar on something that's going to outlast the solar, right? Versus you put solar panels on top of a build-up roof, and you're going to have to replace that roof before the panels are done, which means you're going to have to take down that whole solar system just to replace the roof. So to that point, that ties in with what you're saying, Terry, with regard to putting a skylight panel, call it a skylight, a plastic, that's not going to last as long as the rest of the steel cladding of the building. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that's an interesting little lead on to 2 points I'd love to talk about, Tony. The metal buildings have a very substantial advantage with regards to passive design that people don't think about very much. If you think about a skyscraper, right, you end up with a very small roof to floor area ratio, and you don't really have a lot of places to put the panels. Which makes passive design extremely difficult if it means you have to bring in supplemental electricity, most of which these days is still generated from fossil fuels. A metal building tends to be relatively low. It's in the definition that Tony gave us earlier, and it has a lot of roof space. So achieving passive design, design that doesn't require the burning of fossil fuels in order to provide electricity to the building, a metal building is a whole lot better suited for it. And the other point I wanted to make that Tony just led me to there is the concept of conspicuous green. Blaine Brownell, I think, was the one that actually coined that phrase originally. And that's where, instead of having sort of green, human-friendly buildings that are made to look like any other building, where the design of the building incorporates things that are very clearly, obviously green, like like solar panels on the roof, daylighting, the conspicuous green. So we're not hiding from the fact that we're trying to create healthier, greener buildings. As a matter of fact, we're literally shouting from the rooftops that you're about to enter, or you're at least, in a neighborhood where you have these buildings that are trying to be better and smarter as we go forward. Anybody else want to talk about the building elements that are conspicuously green? I'm thinking Alex might want to.
Well, I normally when I have those type of discussion, I say, like, when you look at an IMP by itself, it's metal and it's chemicals. Okay, so it's kind of it's hard to tell right off the bat that this is I don't like to say green solution, but that is something that is sustainable for the building and for a project. But it brings a lot of value to a sustainable building. Okay, it brings a lot in terms of air infiltration, water infiltration management, because you have so little junctions to manage compared to other materials. I talked about the insulation value that this brings to a building. So this have a good impact on the operations, on the operational carbon. When you think about building getting a building, raising a building, then it's speed. Okay, so the faster you close a building, the faster you start working in the building, and you get out of that construction phase and get into this operational phase. So yes, it's money. Yes, it's good for the owner of the building, but at the same time, it keeps the carbon footprint of the construction phase to a minimum, because you can really close a building fast. Of course, we can get into those life cycle analysis and those kind of things, but I don't think we have enough time now. But and lastly, IMPs and other building systems should think of how can we get the structure as light as possible. Okay, if the structure is light, then again, it's less material that you need to figure on the building to hold what's covering the building at the end. So again, savings and less material needed to get a building in place. So to me, it's all things that makes the IMP a sort of green material. And at the end of life, the steel can be recycled, and the foam system, there's more and more efforts that are going into making that foam core recyclable and reusable in other solution or its original form.
So let's. There was a question that came up, Melissa. I think it came from
Ralph.
Ralph. Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't see that there. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
So Ralph, thank you for the question. He says, speaking of materials, are you using PFAS, polyfluoroalkyl? Hope I did that okay. In window frames coatings and metal buildings coatings? If so, providing durable options to eliminate them. Does anybody want to interject with something on polyfluoroalkyls?
Chesney, you probably would be the closest to that issue.
Yeah, you would think. To be just downright honest, my supply management guy would probably be the closest to that issue. So I mean, I'm when it comes to the actual, what painted components are made of, I'm going to be a little bit uneducated on it. I'm not going to lie. So I'm going to skip to I'm not sure, but I will say this. I mean, we like internally, we have a powder coat paint line. So I'm not sure if that, fits directly into this or not, but, right now we're on the aluminum side. We run everything through our powder coated paint line, and I just be honest with you, I'm not really sure 100% on the details of that. So I'll have to defer slightly. That said, I have zero problem researching it and getting information to people, but I'm not sure off the top of my head exactly how that builds out.
So Tony, Ralph, oh, sorry, I was just going to say, Ralph, if you wanted to reach out, you can send an email to info@Advanced Glazings, and I'll make sure that we get you connected to the answer there. He also just commented, powder coats rarely contain PFAS, so we might be good to go, Chesney.
That sounds like good news.
Tony, is PFAS spoken of within the industry?
I will claim ignorance on that. I know I don't know the specific components of the paint used by our members. Painted metal wall panel is a very, very common cladding for metal buildings. And I know it is a ongoing challenge for our members to come with a balance on the coating that's durable, and will, last for those 40 plus years of the building life. But that is also something that is environmentally friendly. So but I don't know that specific question and that specific component.
Okay, okay. Well, Ralph, thank you very much for that question. We're probably going to have to do a little research and post something about that at a different time. Alex, I want to talk about one of the other components of human occupant wellness and comfort and health, and that is thermal comfort.
Yep.
Right. There are multiple aspects. There's, air quality, there's light and views, daylight and views, there's but one of the big ones, light, natural light, and is always near the top when they do the surveys. The other one that's always near the top is thermal comfort. Obviously, that's something that is near and dear to your world. How often are you chosen? Is IMP chosen for the purposes of thermal comfort?
Quite frankly, I don't know how to answer that specifically. I don't think that people goes to IMP for thermal comfort. I think it's just the perks that comes with the product in terms of getting this solution in place, and because it meets the requirement of the building code and all those kind of things in terms of effective R value that are looked at those days. But like just quickly here, in my actual office, right next to and I could have send you a picture, but right next to the door out of my office, it's a full glass window with a little of IMP, and right now it's getting close to 22 degrees Celsius here, and the office space will raise the temperature will raise close to 30 degrees. So like you will see that the employees will start working a little bit slower. Okay, they will be affected by the heat. So when you have a building that is made with good panel system, good insulation, of course your refrigeration, your HVAC system will work more efficiently, and will make sure that the temperature is maintained within the building. And in addition to that, if we could have a solar panel here, I think it would be great, because it will make our life easier and productivity a little bit better.
Alex, I was there. I know what you're talking about. I said, you have an issue. We can help you with that.
I know, Gary.
I know. Okay.
Steve Lilly, I know you're not a panelist, but I'm going to call on you again, because I know the thermal comfort issue is something that's near and dear to your heart. Let's compare, say, building one, which for Protocase is the administrative building and the original building for the company, versus the extension that we saw earlier on your manufacturing operation in building two. Tell me about the differences in terms of thermal comfort between those two buildings.
So I was about to unmute myself just to chime in, and I'm probably not going to answer your question specifically, but so I come from the perspective of an absolute lay person when it comes down to the technology, but as an end user. And for us, when we were specifying the buildings, it was, especially with the insulated metal panels, it was about specifying an R value that we needed to ensure we were going to get an adequate amount of insulation that we required. And we also did a similar thing when we were looking at the SoleraWall product as well, because of the varying R factors. And then what you do is you marry that with, in our case, it's try to optimize your HVAC system to be able to achieve the most efficient heating and then cooling when you need that as well, combined with adequate ventilation. I mean, we primarily use our ventilation system to maintain a proper level of CO2. So they all come into play, but from our perspective, or from my perspective, when we were looking at our building envelope, it was really about making sure we had an adequate R value, and the insulated metal panels gave us an R21, I believe it was, with the 3-inch panels, and we were able to marry that fairly closely with the rest of the envelope as well. So I don't think I really answered your question, but that's kind of how we approached it.
But when you have those two components with a similar R value, then it's easy to figure out that what you win at some places in your building, you're not losing it elsewhere, and you need to compensate for this difference.
Right,
So
your
by
losses
having-
and gains are very balanced.
Yeah.
So I ran the sales department for one of Steve's companies in the past, and I was situated in building 1, which has a wall, a big curtain wall of transparent glass, like R2 transparent glass. And I can tell you firsthand that in the summertime, it was like being in an easy little, giant oven. And then in the wintertime, you didn't want to be anywhere near the wall because of the glass. It was very, very cold. You could actually feel the air cascading down the side of the glass. It was almost like a cold air waterfall that came down. Whereas, you go into the new 45 Drives building or building 2, those extremes are just not there. And so, the level of insulation is just so important in maintaining thermal comfort. Let's see.
Yeah, actually, Joe, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I neglected to realize the issue with building 1, because building 1 without properly insulated diffuse daylighting material, we struggle with that. We struggle in that building with blinds and the whole gamut of it. I think more of about when we were able to do the proper specification on addition in building 2 and building 4. Just really well done and well balanced buildings.
And just to interrupt, we were talking earlier about the those office umbrellas. That was building 1.
It was
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It still is, and it still is.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was one aspect that one topic that we wanted to make sure we covered today, and I'm going to make sure we do that before this ends. And this one's probably mostly for Tony. How much pressure is your industry feeling to move towards more sustainable design and more, I'll say, human-centric design?
How much pressure? It's definitely growing. There's definitely more focus on that. There are specific end uses for buildings that it's more prevalent, and there's more of a push in those areas, and also different geographic areas where we see more of a demand for sustainability, for LEED certification, those sorts of things. In the end, it comes down to what's being specified and what the owner wants to pay for, right?
Right.
And then it comes to us to as folks who provide buildings and folks who provide products for those buildings to be able to make the case to those building owners on why it's important and why it's worth spending a little bit more to have those features and to have that functionality.
Yeah, and it is just a little bit more, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you have to bring in the sustainability, you have to bring in the human health and wellness and productivity components, but you can't walk away from the low cost paradigm that built the industry, right? Is that a correct statement?
It is a starting point for why a lot of our customers are our customers, right?
Right.
And it's on us to make sure that they are aware that we do more than that. We do a survey where an annual survey where we break down the end uses for all of our 30,000 plus metal buildings that our members build each year, manufacture each year, on how they are being used. And year in, year out, no matter how that top line number changes, no matter how some of the other end uses, some of the things that are more popular at any given time, but year in, year out, 25% of those buildings are commercial warehouses. It's always our biggest segment, and it is probably the segment that, going back to the beginning of the conversation, Joe, and I think you said it, the the metal box on the side of the highway with no windows in it. That is the use that most people, when I go to the AIA show next week and I talk about metal buildings and have to explain what we are, that's what most people are going to say. Oh, you're the warehouse guys, right? And it's us fighting that paradigm is a big challenge for us as a trade association.
I call that opportunity.
Absolutely. I like it, Steve.
Yeah, oh, for sure. How much time do we have, Melissa? We got a couple of minutes left.
We have
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
All right, I want to sneak one more quick one in. John, I see you turn your camera on. Can I sneak one more quick question in?
Oh my God, of course. Yeah, I mean, if we go over a few, I'm sure it's no problem. I just wanted you to know you're 3 minutes to the hour, but I think go for it. Yeah.
Okay, very quick one. It's been well established. There's been a lot of research that shows that having natural light in a retail, like an old school bricks and mortar retail building, increases sales. You know, the original work was done by research was done in the 90s by Lisa Heschong, the Heschong-Mahone study. And then there's been, you know, the anecdotal research at the Walmarts and, you know, all of the research that's done. There's a lot being done today. Is just keeps confirming that you know, the presence of natural light drives up retail sales. Tony, Chesney, Alex, anybody jump in. You know, how much does the industry know? How is the industry aware of the advantages of light for retail? Natural light. So, Tony, you go ahead.
Joe, I don't know that I could speak to that specific end use for folks knowing the value of the natural light. To give you a couple of tidbits. So probably the two biggest retailers that we sell buildings to in terms of number of buildings going up. Number one is Costco stores. So pretty much every Costco store is a metal building. Do Costco folks know about the value of light? Well, they don't typically put anything in the walls, right? You don't see windows on Costco stores except for the front, but they do quite a bit with skylights, right? To bring in natural light from above. So they do have that piece figured out. The other one, who is probably not as good with it, but I don't know that it's a factor in the market they serve, but it's the fastest growing retailer in the U.S. anyway, is Dollar General. And Dollar General stores, I don't know if it's the same way in Canada as it is down here, but you can't hardly drive 5 miles down the road and not run into a Dollar General store. But they are all about a small, low cost, quick to put up and cost effective to put up, which fits metal buildings as well. But I can't say that they're particularly well lit in terms of natural lighting, those stores.
Gotcha. Alex, in your world, do you see that, you know, the knowledge of because you guys are near the higher end of the metal building industry. When you're involved with retail, do you hear customers talk about natural light in retail?
I would say that not necessarily in the retail, but definitely in the manufacturing facility that we're doing more and more. People want to give natural lighting to their employees. They want to bring that natural light within the manufacturing facilities, and this is a trend that is getting heavier. In fact, I like to say that in Europe, some countries started to put regulations that forces building construction to include lighting for the employees, so they cannot work in a 100% artificially lit environment. So we will see this coming in North America. I'm pretty sure it's a matter of time, but you can look at buildings, industrial buildings, and more you see windows, daylighting, translucent panels to bring that natural light in the work environment, and it just makes sense.
Thank you. I think we're out of time. Personally, I would like to thank absolutely everybody for being here, and everybody for sharing their knowledge, and it's actually been a real pleasure to have this conversation today. Melissa, John, which one of you folks is going to take this home?
Take it home, Johnny.
Yeah, no, I just want to remind everyone we'll be sharing the video asset with you, and we'd love if you want to repurpose it in any way that you see fit, on your social channels, or cascade it out to your newsletter, or, any audience that you think would enjoy the seminar from today. And of course, thank you all for making time in our second of 4 sessions. We've got 2 tomorrow that we'd love if you guys get a chance to free up some time in your day. Feel free to pop in and attend our second day and our final 2 sessions. But no, just a endless gratitude for your expertise and your time and your willingness to lend your unique perspective to really engaging conversation today. So that's it from me.
And we only went 2 minutes over, so kudos to everyone.
Thank
Thank you,
Joe.
everybody.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you guys. Really
Appreciate it.
appreciate it.